Can I share the screen? I have a PowerPoint. It will be easier if I can share.
Thank you.
I'm happy to share this topic with Sangha. This is a topic that I'm really interested in, and I've given a talk on another occasion, but this is especially relevant to our community. So let me see if okay, it looks like I can share now. Okay. So let's see. So I'll start with this. Can you see it well? Can you all see it? I think I better do a play mode. So William Blake, Thích Nhất Hạnh, and Fractals, what do they have in common? So this is the poem most of you are familiar with. I read this poem some 40 years ago, and always impressed me the philosophy behind it. I'll read it and I'll share with you why it is very much in line with Thích Nhất Hạnh philosophy. To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a white flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. And then I found a Buddhist poem. On the one side is Chinese, and on the other side is a translation. But you will recognize that's very much what Thích Nhất Hạnh will write his poem. A world in a flower, a life in a tree, a Buddha in a leaf, a paradise in a sand. So what do they have in common? I start with 3 points, being and interbeing, part and whole, transience and transcendence. So if we look at the poem, we see very much a grain of sand, a wild flower. These are all being, but in order to really see the beauty of it, there is definitely being. But if you want to see the eternity, you have to look at relationship. Eternity is within it, right? So it's very much has this idea of being and interbeing, and we are part of the whole. Not only we are part of the whole, but the flowers, the sand, they're all part of the whole. Transience and transcendence. Although flowers will fade, scent might disappear, but there is also the eternity within this very being of everything around us. So that's the first connection. So here is Thích Nhất Hạnh writing. Divine is within us and around us. If you truly get in touch with a piece of carrot, you get in touch with the soil, the rain, the sunshine. You get in touch with Mother Earth and eating in such a way you feel in touch with true life, your roots, and that is meditation. So here we see the same message of being and interbeing and meditation and transcendence. So I found a very pertinent video. It's about 10 minutes, but probably we would watch everything. We'll watch about 4 minutes and a half. In this video, Thích Nhất Hạnh talk about what is the concept of emptiness. Sometimes we say emptiness, but it's hard to understand. Thích Nhất Hạnh made it very clear in this video. Interconnectedness, interbeing, all these things kind of related to that poem. I think usually I have to unshare and reshare in order to see the video. So let me stop, and I have to reshare in order to see the video. I have the video on. Okay. Okay.
Emptiness does not mean non-existence. Many people think to be empty means not existing, but it's not true. In the Heart Sutra, we recite form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. There is a glass with some tea, and this glass is not empty. It has some tea in it. And there is another glass that has no tea. To be empty or not empty, the glass has to be there. In order to be empty or not to be empty, the glass has to be there. So emptiness does not mean non-existing. The emptiness of the glass does not mean the non-existence. It does not mean the non-existence of the glass. It is there, but it is empty. It's like this flower. It's beautiful. It's a wonder of life. It is the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is inside. But the flower is impermanent and it is empty. And empty does not mean non-existing. When we look deeply into a flower like this, we have the impression that the flower is full of everything. There is a sunshine inside. There is a cloud inside. There is the earth, the mineral. Even our consciousness is in the flower. Time, space, everything. It looks like everything in the cosmos have come together in order to help the flower to manifest as a wonder. So the fact is that the flower is full of the cosmos. It's like a piece of bread that you are about to eat. Eating mindfully, you look at the piece of bread and you see that the piece of bread that you are holding, it is the body of the cosmos. Everything is there in the piece of bread. The sky, the earth, the sun, the cloud, the earth, everything.
So this short video shows us very well the sometimes we talk about being and non-being, and it might be difficult to comprehend what is non-being, and he made it clear emptiness or non-being is not doesn't mean they do not exist. It's just a coin of two different sides, and so is the transience and eternity. We have the eternity within what is transient. Seems like it will go away, but in a larger universe, cosmos, they always exist in one form or another form. And the way that we can feel the existence of things might be past one form to feel it as interbeing, interrelatedness. We are interrelated not just of people, but also nature. This is a good analogy between the poem and also Thích Nhất Hạnh saying. So a little bit about William Blake. He more than 300 years ago, but his poem is still speaking so directly to us, so relevant. He is very talented, not only a poet, he is a painter, a print maker, artist, and there's a rather curious label. He is a prophet. And this is one of the paintings that William Blake made. I didn't know he was a painter himself. He painted very spiritual paintings. And he is also deeply Christian, but Christian only in the sense that he has a direct relationship with Jesus Christ, not through the church, but from his heart and mind. So he says, Jesus, he is the only God, so am I, and so are you. So that's very much in line with our thinking that we have Buddha nature in us. For Christians, they have Christ nature in them. So he is also mystic, open to all mystical experiences, and he is non-conforming. And this is a painting of some contemplating the creator. You will not see anything typical of Christian painting with cross, but you see a creation from his imagination. Thích Nhất Hạnh, we know more about him. Buddhist monk, peace activist. He is also a poet and teacher, and he studied the order of interbeings. And this interbeings as a manifestation of understanding the interrelatedness of web of life, not only of people, but also our environment and nature. So he is also a mystic to some extent, interconnectedness of all beings. Now, my third element is fractals. When I was researching William Blake, I came across a TED talk by a mathematician. And a mathematician, when he talked about fractals, he started to recite. William Blake's poem, and I thought that was quite eye-opening for a mathematician to see the connection between William Blake poem. Let me find this poem so that I can share with you. It's fascinating.
200 years ago, William Blake wrote this verse: "To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour." Now, poetry is often subject to interpretation, but I think we can all agree that this poem is about fractals. And that's pretty impressive because fractals weren't discovered until 170 years later. But Blake's poem captures something essential about the natural world around us. It draws a connection between the very large and the very small, and it observes that similar patterns can occur at vastly different scales across time and space. And we see this in the universe around us, similar patterns from the shape of immense spiral galaxies to the weather patterns of a hurricane, to little eddies in a stream. And whenever you have a single object that contains these patterns repeating over and over again at many different scales, and where every small part resembles the whole, that's a fractal. And we see them around us everywhere, from the jagged shapes of lightning bolts to the rough, ragged edges of coastlines. But fractals are not just outside of us. Our lungs are fractals. That's how they manage to pack the surface area of a tennis court, folded down into your rib cage. And our circulatory system is a fractal as well, which is how 60,000 miles of branching blood vessels and capillaries fit inside every human being. So I'm able to stand here and talk to you today because I'm a living, breathing fractal, and so are you. But for hundreds of years, these complicated geometric shapes were swept under the rug. They were considered too complicated to mathematically analyze because they don't behave like circles or squares or triangles. And the assumption was that any explanation for these shapes would have to be as complicated as the shapes themselves, because ordinarily, simple things have simple explanations and complex things have complex explanations. But every once in a while, something comes along that breaks the mold. Take the universe. 100 years ago, there was a crisis in physics. Measurements of the natural world weren't working out the way that scientists expected. And physicists were tying themselves in knots, coming up with more and more convoluted theories, trying to explain away these discrepancies. But then this guy showed up with a very simple equation. And this led to the discovery of the theory of relativity and opened up an entire new era in physics. 70 years later, geometry was in a similar crisis because mathematicians still couldn't explain the properties of these complex shapes. But then this mathematician, Benoit Mandelbrot, found himself studying an equally simple equation. And from this simple equation, this unlocked the mysteries of these complex shapes, and it led to the development of the entire new fields of chaos theory and fractal geometry. So let's take a look at this equation. Z goes to Z squared plus C. And the way that this works is that you take a small number, you square it, you add the original number, then you feed that back into the equation, square it, add the original number, and you process it over and over, each time feeding back in the original number to keep the process going. And for some numbers, not much happens, it just stays small. For other numbers, it just bounces back and forth. But for other values, it grows very quickly and it quickly escapes to infinity. And it's possible to compute this by hand for 10 or 100 or 1,000 different numbers, but to get a true idea of what's really going on, you need to do this with a computer for millions and millions of numbers in 2 dimensions. And when you do that and plot the results, you get this fantastic shape, the Mandelbrot set, a shape of infinite complexity generated from such an incredibly simple formula. This shape changed my life.
I'll just stop here. So it's pretty impressive to see how the William Blake's poem "To See a Flower" that being quoted by a mathematician. Now I'm looking for my PowerPoint. Go back to my PowerPoint. There is a direct connection between, we see there's a connection between poetry, our Buddhist understanding and practice, everything is connected. I love his saying, we are actually fractals. That means we are not only part of the cosmos, we are really a being that has contains all the wonders of the universe. So here, another summary, part 2 of the connections, open to the mysteries of the world. And from the poem and from Thích Nhất Hạnh teachings and a fractal, you can see something about transcendence and the divinity that's beauty beyond words. But it's also has some scientific basis, like the systems theory that put interrelatedness of the parts and a whole at the center of its theory. Insight into life, we see the manifestation of the web of life. We are part and a parcel of not only human relationship, but also the universe. And last time when I gave a talk, I mentioned that my journey from atheist to agnostic to a mystic. And I'm proud of being a mystic. Being a mystic means opening to the known and unknown, and to see the interconnectedness, finding meaning and a comfort in the vastness of the universe and potentialities. Before, like many people, I would like to see some certainty. Now I'm comfortable of finding the eternal mystery of the universe. It's not that mystery would never be known. It is the willingness to see the uncertainty and willingness to approach the interconnectedness and the approximation to some kind of realization, but knowing it's probably not going to find the truth anytime in my life, but I get small moments of enlightenment, and that is enough. So the last point, of course, for interbeing, Thích Nhất Hạnh out of interbeing is engage Buddhism, activism in peace and the environment. That, of course, we go beyond William Blake. And I'll end with this poem we have read before. Peace is every step. The shining red sun is my heart. Each flower smiles with me. How green, how fresh, all that grows. How cool the wind blows. Peace is every step. It turns the endless path to joy. And that is the end of my presentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jen. That was interesting, informative, and fascinating to me. So we have a bit of time now if you want to share something or ask a question.